Yes, people, welcome to the 12th episode of the Backpacking Psychonaut. In today's episode, I want to talk about religion and spirituality and the importance of finding your own spiritual path, developing an understanding of the human psyche and the nature of reality, but also understanding the dogmatic approaches of religion and how it's really influenced our culture and society and also manipulated and kept people controlled. So this is going to be a really interesting episode because I'm not sure how many people of our generation really dive into spirituality in a way that isn't approached with a dogmatic approach. And without it sounding like hippie as well, like you speak of spirituality and you think it's just a bunch of people fucking meditating around a tree, or a bunch of hippies who don't have homes and are just living outside of the material world. But you can utilize spirituality and you can use it as a development of your own psyche and your betterment, and you can use it in a productive way, and it can actually be the way to alleviate yourself from a lot of suffering. So the one thing I got from spirituality was, like, before I really started diving into the religions like Buddhism, Hinduism, I started reading a little bit into Christianity. Before I started reading these spiritual books and started listening to people like Sam Harris and these people that were reinforcing this good message of go out and understand the human psyche, I was very like self-centered. I would always do things for myself. And even when I was trying to help other people, it was never just to help and serve others like selflessly. It was always in a selfish act. So I would maybe go and pick someone up from the shop or pick someone up from work, but it would always be in return that, like, I want them to like me more. And I was never treating people as an end. I was always treating people as an end. I was never just treating them as a means. And when you do this, when you're trying to always get things out of people and you're only doing things for the betterment of your own ego and for the betterment of your relationship with someone, you start doing things very like selfishly, and you're always reinforcing these desires that you're attaching to. So you always have these desires about the external world and other people. Like, I want him to like me more. Oh, I want this person to respect me. I want this to come across in this way. And when you do this, when you attach that outcome, you just reinforce the fact that you're doing things to make yourself feel better, and you're not actually doing it just for the truth, the good thing to do. But when you act and you understand spirituality and you realize that, like, everyone around us is all connected and we're all exactly the same, there is a base reality, and we are all just separated. We're just separated from our egos. At the base of this reality, we're all this one universal force. We're all connected. But when we reinforce this ego and we act selfishly, all we do is separate ourselves from this oneness, and we're all the same. We're all part of this universal force. We're all part of Mother Nature, whatever you want to call it. And that's what some people define as God. This universal force that's brought us all here, we're all connected to this, but we separate ourselves from it by reinforcing the ego. And once you understand this, and once you start reading into spirituality and developing an understanding of the nature of reality, you really do start acting selflessly. And it's the reason I started this podcast. Was obviously I want to still get money and I want to free up my own time, but the main reason I started this podcast is to give advice to you, the person listening. I want to share the journey that I've gone on, the lessons I've learned, and I want to hopefully help other people in their understanding of the mind and the body. And when you do that, it's paradoxically the external world starts coming to you. So you do things in selfless acts and you don't attach yourself to an outcome of, I'm going to do this for more money, I'm going to do this to make this person like me. When you're just yourself and you do things for your truth, you actually in return get better returns, and you get a higher ROI on your actions, because you're doing things from a value driven point. You're wanting to help people. So if you want to start getting into spirituality, I would definitely start with meditation. Meditation is going to be your biggest insight into how you operate and how the world operates, because without understanding how your mind works and without being able to observe the nature of your thoughts and your beliefs and the bodily sensations, without understanding this thing through meditation, you're never going to be able to act truthfully. You're always going to be tricked by the illusion of the ego, and the ego can come in very tricky ways. It can make you do things and you think you're doing that for the good thing, but in reality it's to serve yourself instead of serving others. So the more you meditate and the more you actually become aware of your thoughts and realize that you are not everything that comes up in your brain. They are just a result of some brain chemistry, and these thoughts are just popping out of nowhere, and the only reason they're becoming you is because you're attaching to them. When you understand that, you start dispelling and you start actually taking control of your life and becoming the conqueror of your own destiny. So for spirituality, I would definitely start with meditation and really start learning the mechanics of your own mind and practicing the habit of being an observer and not attaching to every thought that comes up. But also you want to start reading books and start reading into how the body works and how the mind works, because any time spent reading into the mechanics of the mind, the mechanics of the body, the nature of reality, all this stuff, this is never wasted time. This is the best investment you can make, because you're going to start really understanding how others work, how you adapt to different scenarios. And the more you do this, the more you start understanding how to operate and how to react, and you can start dispelling a lot of negative emotions and negative reactions. So I would first start recommending reading books like Why Buddhism is True by a guy called Robert Wright, listening to Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson, whoever it is, whoever speaks to you. Go out and seek out these spiritual teachers, because these are people who have figured out and really do understand the human psyche, and they can put it to you in ways that really does help develop you as a person. And even this podcast, if you find me very relatable, and if you find the lessons I'm learning here, message me, speak to people that are on this path, because the more you do that, the more you start getting an insight, and the more good information you consume, the more you can start acting out that information and seeing the external results. But once you've developed a bit of an understanding into spirituality and your own human psyche, it's very interesting to start looking into the religious texts. And I want to make like a quick statement before I go into religion and start going into the lessons that it teaches and the values. Sorry, I've got flies coming all over me here. It's fucking well distracting. So yeah, before I start going into religion, I want to first say that like religion has been used as a tool to manipulate and control people. And for thousands and thousands of years, it's been used as a tool to keep people where they are and keep them thinking in certain ways and to keep them still. But this isn't actually the main point of religion. That wasn't the main goal of these religious people like Jesus, like the Buddha, like whoever it may be. These people were just trying to teach good values and good lessons. They didn't want it to become this massive religion where it was controlling people. They were just showing the lessons they've learned from understanding their own mind and observing the mechanics of what's going on in their own brains. And they were just teaching lessons of honesty and truth and serving others. But through thousands of years, like the ego of people has got in the way, and they've seen these religious teachers and put it into a package that has been used to control society. And like people believe this dogma and they let it control their own lives, and they literally live a life for the religious teachings without actually really understanding the true teachings. And they lose that analytical mind. They become so brainwashed to thinking, oh, Allah's my God. Oh, God's this authoritative figure in the sky. This is my God, that's your God. And they don't actually see that all religions are teaching the same thing. Every religion out there is teaching the same thing. It's teaching a lesson of compassion, of oneness, of serving others. But when you really fall into the dogma of religion and you blindly believe that like Christianity is the only way forward, or Islam is the only way forward, Buddhism is the only way forward, you start losing that connectedness. And by that, all you're doing is actually reinforcing your own ego, and it's a massive trap people get stuck in. But for religion, it's some of the teachings in religion, in like the religious texts, like if you read the Bible, the Upanishads, which is the Hindu text, the Bhagavad Gita, which is part of the Upanishads, when you start reading the Buddha's teachings, whatever it may be, the Quran, these have all got very, very interesting insights into the human psyche, and very interesting insights into the nature of reality. And one thing I found out religion, especially maybe like the Eastern side of religion and not the West, is that we're all connected and we're all one. So like the Western religions, like Christianity, Islam, they say that we're serving God. God is this other figure and we're serving him. But when you go into the more Eastern side and you go into like Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, they all promote the fact that we are all one, and God is this universal force. God is everything. Like God is me, God is you, God is that tree. Whatever has created this reality, that is God, and we're all connected to that. And the reason we detach away from this is because we attach our sense of selves on top of it. And that's what the Buddhists teach. They're like, this sense of self is an illusion. And the more you get an insight into your own mind and you start meditating and reading the Buddhist scriptures, it gives you like insights, and it gives you kind of a clear path to go in and dispel away from this sense of self. And then you can become one with everyone. And once you're at one with the true nature of reality, once you understand that this separation from everyone else, this sense of self is just a pure illusion, you can serve others and you can do good in the world without having alternative motives. And religion has got some amazing lessons in. And like people look at the Bible and think, how can they believe that Jesus died and came back to life? How can they believe God made this, and God made that? But if you actually read the Bible and not take it on face value and really dive into it, it's actually a metaphor for the human psyche. And a lot of the religious texts do this. So like the Bhagavad Gita, which is part of the Upanishads, which is like the ancient Hindu text, that's placed on a battlefield, and it is, the setting for it is a war between two families. But the war is actually a metaphor for the battle in your own mind. And it's the same with the Bible. All these stories in the Bibles are metaphors for the understanding of our own mind. And this is what religion can give you. When you actually listen to religion and you allow the lessons to come in and not get blindsided by the dogmatic beliefs of a God, you can actually develop an understanding into the true nature of reality. And these people have figured it out thousands of years ago. Think how crazy that is. They're like thousands of years ago, there was a guy called Jesus who really figured out how the human psyche works and how to live a life of virtue and passion. There's a guy called Buddha who sat under a tree for 28 days and became that much of an observer that he completely detached away from the bodily sensations, detached away from the thoughts, and managed to observe the true nature of reality. And all they're doing is teaching us. That's all they want to do. They want to pass on the lessons and serve others. And that's what religion should be used for, not to control, not to manipulate, not to blindly believe, but it should be used as lessons to learn and teach others. And I think a big thing now comes back to like the definition of God, like who is God and what is God. And I think this is actually going to be one of the big things that maybe pushes rather society backwards or forwards, because we live in a society now where people they're very atheistic. They don't believe in any like spiritual power. They're like, science doesn't back that up. Well, he's talking a load of bullshit. Listen to this woo-woo that this guy's talking about. But when you define God in a way that like God is everything, God is this universal power, because there is something that has created this tree here. There's something that's created this blade of grass. There's something that's created me, and we're all from the same atoms that come from the Big Bang. So whatever that is, whatever that force that's creating all this, that is what we should be defining God as. God is everything. And this is a guy called Spinoza. He defined it as this. So if you want to look into it, type in on Google Spinoza's God and read into it. And it's the definition that God is everything. And when we say that God is everything, I am God, you am God, God is that tree, God is a ham sandwich, wherever the fuck it is, right? We start realizing that we're all connected. And why would you hurt someone else? Why would you hurt the planet when that's you? We're all connected. We're not separate from each other. We're not separate from nature. We're not separate from me and you. We're all connected. We're all on the same playing field. It's only this ego that's separating us from this connectedness. And I found a big insight into this. And if we can define God in that way and stop defining God as this authoritative figure in the sky or God as something else, we can really start developing compassion for each other. But one way I found was a really key insight into this was psychedelics. Like the minute I did psychedelics and I started diving into the bigger doses, you really watch your mind dispel away this sense of self. And it's like this sense of self, that you're this observer of what's going on. You're this person behind your face that's observing reality. Once you go on a high dose of psychedelics, that wipes away and you expand into everything. You see the true nature of reality, and you see that like that blade of grass is just me. That tree is just me. We're all one. And it sounds really hippie, but you really understand that we are all one. And psychedelics give you a massive insight in that. They shut a thing called down, your default mode network, where your sense of self comes from, and it allows other parts of your brain to communicate, and you start actually seeing reality for what it is, and you start picking up on like we're actually all connected and everything is just one. And this sense of self is just an illusion. Like this sense of self that we've reinforced for our whole life, that we use to live in society and to fit into this culture. Everyone's like walking around society playing these roles. I'm Alex Rogers. I'm this person. I go to work and I earn money, and then I go home and look after my kids. And I act like this and I act like that. When you realize that this is just a pure illusion, it's just something fabricated in your own mind. It's not real. It's not actually real. It's just something fabricated in there. Once you realize that that's an illusion, you can dispel it and you can stop causing yourself a lot of suffering, because a lot of suffering comes from reinforcing this ego and attaching to certain outcomes. So like that outcome of I'm doing this to make me more confident. I'm doing this to make me more money. I'm doing this for something. Once you dispel that sense of self, you start doing things just because it's the right thing to do. And you stop chasing this hedonic treadmill. So for those that don't know what the hedonic treadmill is, it's like the constant pursuit of more. And the Buddhists talk about this a lot, and they talk about how like the human psyche has been evolved in a way that we're always pursuing things. Because think of when we was evolving, if we were just constantly basked in pleasure. So say if we was like hungry and then we ate a berry, and then forever we just lasted in the pleasure of that one berry, the taste stayed forever, we was done with that berry, we wouldn't survive. So by the nature of human evolution, we've developed to desire things more than have pleasure from them. So we're constantly desiring more and more and more. But once you get the understanding of this and realize that, like, I'm constantly in this pursuit for more and it's never going to end, you can start breaking it slowly but surely. You can stop attaching to certain outcomes and alleviate some sort of suffering. And one thing I want to say is, like, now that's pretty much everything I've got to say, guys. Like, it's been really hard for me to record this episode. We're out traveling at the moment, and I'm finding, because I'm not in a routine and I'm maybe not eating as healthy and I'm not exercising, I'm losing the ability to have like clear thoughts. And it really does just show the fact that, like, your environment and the food you put into your body and how well you look after yourself and how aware you are of your own thoughts really does influence how you act to people and how the results you get in the external world. And I've really struggled to record this episode. I tried doing it 3 or 4 times and I've been like stuttering, and ahhing, and it's really frustrating. But you've just got to keep pushing past these things, keep developing, and keep going. So yeah, that's my episode, people. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that made sense to people. It's a very complex subject, and like religion and spirituality are things that you don't just dive into like on the offhand. They're things that really do take a thorough understanding and take a lot of time to learn the lessons from. So thank you very much for listening, people, and I'll see you all in the next episode.